Well, the sun is surely sinking down, but the moon is slowly rising, and this whole world must still be spinning around. I still love you, so close your eyes. You can close your eyes, it's alright.
What's that song going? That's something you know, you're on camera. When I first get my guitar, I was about 10 years old, and the reason why I got it was because everybody else started to have it. My good friend across the street from me, Jimmy Source, had the first guitar that I've ever seen, electric. And he was taking lessons, but he would show me things, and next thing you know, I said, "Mom, Dad, I need a guitar." And I remember my first guitar was a used guitar, Sears Silvertone, and that was my pride and joy for a long time until I moved up in life with electric guitar, and then soon after that, how you doing? Too many neighbors. From that point, I moved to electric guitar and another acoustic. I just kept buying guitars. I think I have most of the guitars I've ever owned. But anyway, from that point on, I did also to meet girls, the most women. And how many cars are going to drive by, and pretty soon the kids are going to see me and they're going to start saying, "Mr. Thompson, how you doing? Hi, Ed." Any second now, I know, any second now. Anyway, from that point on, lessons. I took lessons at the ripe old age of 18. Because I had to make a decision, going to college now. And I had to learn how to play guitar before I got into college, at least learn how to read music. So I took lessons from this gentleman named Joe Cinderella. And Joe Cinderella was like a god to me. And he was always positive in how he taught me. I would go in there and try to read something, and I'd be flubbing up, and I'd, "Ed, don't worry about it, listen to how you go." And then he started to go through the blues thing, and I would jam with him and show him, what I knew. He was like, "Hey, Eddie, you got it, man, you're natural, don't worry about it, don't sweat it." Unfortunately, I always sweated it. I could never not sweat how I played. Matter of fact, I still sweat. I think it's just part of my nature. But anyway, That's Lucy looking at me. Here she goes. Okay. Anyway, so I started getting more serious about guitar. I was playing it in my church. I was one of the leaders of my church folk group for a long time. And from there, I started playing jazz in my jazz band. It was my friend Jack Powers that showed me my first real electric jazz guitar. He had this beautiful 1970 Gibson Birdland, and I love that guitar. Matter of fact, I ended up with it. And he would show me things because he was taking lessons from Joe Cinderella before I even knew Joe, and I would learn from him and copy off of him. And next thing you know, I wanted to study music in school, so I did. I went to William Patterson College for jazz studies with Thad Jones and Mel Lewis, and had no idea. And I learned real fast because, going from the fire to the fire, the frying pan to the fire, it was not an easy subject to pick up off the cuff. But there were a lot of rock guitarists inside there at the time, and we had a lot of fun meeting new people and just being surrounded by musicians where the only thing you did was music all day long. I used to lock myself into a practice room and sleep overnight inside the practice room, just practicing and jamming. And I wake up in the morning, with a trench mouth and going to class and playing guitar some more. And that's what it was all about, having that musician life. And on certain days, I wish I was back there doing that too. But maybe in time, maybe with this video, maybe somebody will see me and put me on the road and pay me a fee of about $200,000 per year just to play guitar.
Small change.
Yeah, dreams.
Some of the other people you took lessons with?
My first guitar teacher was Joe Cinderella. Joe Cinderella taught me everything. As I say, was a very, very positive force in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It still is.
Yeah.
From him, I went through almost every guitar teacher inside the faculty at William Patterson College. I had lessons with Bob DeVoe, who became my next teacher that I never, forgot. And every once in a while, I would go back to Bob and say, "Bob, help me out. I can't play anymore." And he had everything laid out for me. He was like, Dr. Bob, great player. And I took lessons with everybody. I mean, I had a lesson with John Schofield, who was Mike Stern. I just would see guys play. I said, "Hey, come a lesson." I'm to see Joe Pass live. It was the famous Joe Pass gig where it snowed that night.
So
it was
well-known people.
Bucky Pizzarelli, Harry Leahy. I forgot the other guy. Oh my gosh. Jimmy Rainey.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Loeb.
Later
John
on.
Schofield. Mike Stern.
What was that like?
Well, at the time, one reason why I got to meet Mike, I doubt if he even knows me, because the fact that my friend at the time was going to William Patterson College was Bill Evans. Not Bill Evans, the pianist, because he would be way too young, but Bill Evans, the saxophonist, who played with Miles Davis. At the time, he was playing with Miles Davis. And through connections, I got to meet Mike Stern at the 55 bar in the Village. And we hooked up for a lesson. I said, "Hey, Mike, how about a lesson?" Blah, 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 blah. I thought, and he told me some exorbitant price, and I had to go out and, sell something. And I took a lesson with him. And he was a wonderful guy. The same thing with Schofield. They were like wonderful people. And they really had no real method. They're like, "No, let me hear you play." And then they would show me things. And they were both by saying, "Well, don't play like I did. I play all wrong. But yeah, if you were doing this, you would try to do this. Like I slur my notes, you want to slur your notes." And I played with the wrong end of the pick, and I do this wrong. And they would try and tell me all their, their mistakes in playing. And I was like, it sounds great. It works for you. Maybe it'll work for me. Jimmy Ponder had lessons with him. He played just like Wes Montgomery. He played with $1,000,000. So yeah, I was with everybody, and then plus the local people that I jam with. My best friend Chuck Ferravola. We used to call him Captain Fingers or Mr. Fingers or something. Chuck plays blindingly fast, but his knowledge of the guitar and music is endless, and he's one of my best teachers, and I still play with him to this day. And you can always learn something new from Chuck because Chuck is, like I said, he's this endless fountain of music and guitar playing. So thanks to him, I'm probably still playing music because of him. Because he always, calls me up, Eddie, gotta play, gotta do this, gotta record, and I try to be his right-hand man. And as far as other teachers, one of my best teachers who wasn't a guitarist was Thad Jones. Thad Jones was on the faculty at William Passon College. He wasn't at first, liked, but before he left, he was the most beloved teacher at William Passon College, at least in the music department. He had followers that you wouldn't believe, and to this day. Thad taught me more about music in one class, in one lesson, than anybody had, could have taught me in 10 years of music. It was mostly his professional experience, and mostly his in-depth knowledge of arranging and melody, and he was just
harmony.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal teacher. I mean, his thing, and here's a jazz guy, and the only thing he would talk to me about with music and harmony and arranging was Maurice Ravel and Debussy, and I was like, what? How about Ellington? Yeah. Ellington. I play for Basie. I know about them. I know, all those, arrangers and things. I'm talking about like, real in-depth music. Since Mozart's like going, to the bathroom, trying to, excuse my language, trying to take a shit. The only thing he did was fart. It was just nothing there. But when you get into Ravel and to Debussy, he says, then you're getting to like, the core.
So out of that, I guess it got you into classical music and the wider world of music and art. So in classical music, was there anybody who
classical music? Oh,
you favored?
You have to love Beethoven.
Yeah. What was your sort of course when you were going through school that you went through when you did classical music? There were some touch points where you liked people and other people, or certain styles or eras?
Well, the main thing that I really liked about going to college was, being in different ensembles. So I was a decent singer, so I was in chamber singers, chamber choir. I was in the choir, and we, I mean, the first time I heard the Carmina Burana, I was like completely blown away. O Fortuna, like, come on, that music was so deep. Bizet. Who else? We were doing things that I thought I would never like. Palestrina, Pretorius, Franck. I can go through 1,000 different composers that I never in my entire life heard, other than your Bach and Beethoven. And even then, with those composers, I never really experienced, performing their music. I was a rock and roll guitarist or a jazz guitarist. I never had any call to like play that. And that's one thing that Joe Cinderella got me into, was playing clarinet solos on the guitar, because the guitar and clarinet have the same range. So you have me play, and read clarinet duets or solos and things, and I was learning all these different composers and styles of music through just learning how to read music.
So did the classical experience cross over into your work with church music at all?
Oh, sure.
And talk about the church music, if you could.
Church music, at the time, working with my church, which I still do to this day, the church music that I was mostly doing was basically early folk mass, where you would do these, strumming, Now, that was all well and good, but I was getting bored because the only thing I was doing was this, and I have about another, 5 or 6 other guitars all like strumming the same thing. And I was saying, well, I need to hit this up because, when I started going to college, I started to learn how to play, jazz chords. So I'm like, playing different rhythms and. So here I am, I'm doing all this stuff that everybody else is going. And I'm just adding all my flavoring to it. And then I started telling people to lay out, start to arrange things, start to produce things. And we had one of the hippest folk groups going. And like all northern New Jersey, people came from other churches just to hear what we were doing. We had almost 23 people singing. And we were not just doing, Hear, O Lord, the sound of Michael. We were doing Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, we were doing Joni Mitchell music. We were singing whatever pop music that had a message that worked. And we had standing room only in our church every Saturday at 5 o'clock or every Sunday at 7 in the evening. And there were people just coming out the doors. We had a full band with between 3 to 7 guitars. Sometimes 2 bass players, which was another interesting thing because one bass player would play a whole bunch of notes, and the other guy would just lay it in there. I mean, who knew that back in the 1970s that was something hip to do?
So obviously there was no resistance at all from the church in any way.
Oh no! I mean, they knew that they had basically a gold mine, and we were bringing people in, and we would have a youth group and go on horseback rides and have parties and things like that. It was the 70s, love and peace and Jesus is just all right with me. Doobie Brothers, another song. Eric Clapton, the Beatles. We were doing all great music like that, and nobody complained. They just loved their music, and that's what it was about. The music that had a message, and the priest was smart enough. Monsignor Carl Wilson. Was hip enough, smart enough to work his sermons off of what we were doing. And I now I've been involved with the church for over 40 years. I would hear something during mass and I would change the mass all around. What I would have written down said that works, but you know what he just said, we can do this song instead. So let's do that song.
Then they crucified him, but he rose on Easter. Amen, amen, amen. Hallelujah. He died to save us, and he lives forever. Amen, amen, amen.
Each day I miss her. Gee, what a thrill each time I kiss her. Believe me, I got a case on Nancy with a laughing face. She makes the winter and makes it summer. Summer can take some lessons from her. Picture a tomboy in lace, that's Nancy Would you ever hear mission bells ringing? Well, she'll give you that very same glow. When she speaks, you think it was singing, just to hear her say hello. Keep Eddie Grable, Lamore and Turner. She makes my heart a charcoal burner. No one could ever replace my Nancy with the laughing face. My Nancy with the laughing face. My Nancy with the laughing face.
Who's your favorite guitar players?
God, the deadly question. Wes Montgomery, Jim Hall, Joe Pass, and as far as the old school, Grant Green, Charlie Christian, and yeah, B.B. King.
What was it about the old guys that you could relate to, being in the modern era as you are?
Melody, simplicity, and they just made you, think all the time. They made you just like, they gave you a full plate of music, a smorgasbord. Don't get me wrong, the younger guys are just as good, but the older guys really has a place in my heart. But there's like millions more that I'm influenced by.
When the rock and roll came into your life, when the first thing you heard, the first thing you picked up, I mean, what trail did you go down?
Oh, look, Jimmy.
That way?
Jimmy.
First time you heard him, saw him, what'd you think?
First time heard Jimi Hendrix was, of course, either Purple Haze or Foxy Lady or something like that. And it had to be Purple Haze. I remember not liking the chord he was playing. That E7 sharp 9. So I just didn't like it. It just sounded just like oh God, it's so dissonant. And as I heard the song more and more, and then my friend Jack Powers, of all people, showed me how to play that chord. I was playing it wrong for years, or at least for 2 years or whatever. And he showed me like, oh no, it's like this one. And I was like, really? It's a sharp 9. So oh, that's Jimi Hendrix. I said, Jimmy's playing jazz. And I grew up in a jazz household. My father listened to nothing but Miles Davis, Dave Brubeck, Paul Desmond, Stan Getz, all these guys. Train. So you're talking about all these, jazz influences that I was hearing and hearing heavily, melody. All of a sudden, Jimi Hendrix came in there and he threw in all this, all this out stuff that I couldn't, wrap my head around. But, he was interesting, and then, he had the hair and the whole thing. And then really, I think what really got me was when he played the blues. And I went, man, this guy can play.
Was he your first sort of entryway into the blues, or were there other blues guitars you heard first?
It was mostly him. The guy, believe it or not, the guy that, like Jimmy didn't play your conventional blues licks. So he was like way over my head. I was like, whoa, whoa.
Is there
what's
an
he doing?
example? Can you give an example?
I have to admit that it wasn't until, I was listening to Hendrix, but he played differently. Everybody was playing the, Jimmy, because he played upside down, and the strings were strung upside down, he approached the guitar completely different. And so he played it differently. So you had to really like almost play backwards because of the way that he was playing. So his vibrato was phenomenal. His approach was just completely different from anybody else that I knew. I have to admit, the first person, believe it or not, that really, grabbed my ear, at least in a conventional blues sense, was when I heard the live album of Humble Pie. And Steve Marriott and Peter Frampton, when they started playing, a Ray Charles tune, Hallelujah, I Just Love Her So, I was like, well, who the heck is this? And then I was, at that point taking lessons and playing jazz at 17, 18 years old. And I said, well, he's nothing but playing a pentatonic blues scale, but the way they were playing was so aggressive. I said, wait a minute, this is all they're doing? And that's when things changed for me. So I can do that. And then when I started listening to Jimmy, I said, well, Jimmy's playing the whole thing differently. So I used like a combination of both to approach my playing. And that has helped me tremendously, and then, like I said, other guys that I jam with, my friend Chuck, he really, helped me loosen up my style, because the fact that I really tried way too hard to copy people, and he was the kind of person that I would say, would listen to these people, but then he would approach it with his own style and go wild with it. He did it his way, and really made me say, well, do it your way. It's just as good. Who says that is not? So it was a big help. And then Jimi Hendrix was just like, every time I heard him, he was doing something different. And plus, what I liked about Jimi Hendrix too is that he played acoustic guitar, he played electric guitar. He didn't like his singing, just as I didn't like my own singing. But he kind of just said, like, hey man, this is me, this is how I play, and that's how he played it, and that's how I play now. I do pay attention to how I sing more. I must have spent years not knowing how bad I sung until I made a recording with my church, and I sang the great Amen. And you know how people like your parents and your friends say, oh, you sing great, you sound great, and the whole thing. And when I got the proof back of how great I sang, I remember getting a fresh press album, and I got the jacket, I opened it up, and I put it on my record player, and I listened to myself. I thank God since I'm in my bedroom, because I think I almost started to cry, because I couldn't understand how bad I sounded. I said, oh my God, I'm singing out of tune. I can't sing. And I started to question my mother and my sister and my father. I said, can you hear it? Oh, you sound wonderful. And I said, thank God for our parents' love, but everybody out there was probably saying, this guy really stinks. You play guitar, okay, but you can't sing. And that's when I really started to work on my voice. I was in college, and I was wondering why I wasn't getting these solos, and this other guy was getting the solos, and I said, why didn't I get the solos? It's because I couldn't sing. So I took voice lessons, and I studied, singing in tune, working with the piano, singing scales with my guitar, and that helped me tremendously. And mostly just listen to yourself, and that's the main thing. I don't think my voice matured until I turned, in my mid to late 30s, and I'm still even trying to find a sound. It's just a never-ending quest. That's what I love about music. Most people get into their career and not that they hit a wall, but they go as far as they can go with music. It's just, you're learning every day.
Music business today, music life, musician's life. What's that like?
Musician's life, as I said, it's a 24-hour-a-day thing. When you see something on TV, hear something on the radio, no matter where you go, it's in the elevators, it's playing in the background at a doctor's office, it's music, whatever, it's never ending. And the ideas come in, you got to get the birds right now singing, it's always there.
Pressure to keep up with what's the latest?
The pressure to keep up with the latest, I like to hear what's out there. Thank God for for iTunes. I can just go to somebody's new album, hear a couple seconds of it, and it's like if I like that, I'll download it and listen to it for a while. But really, I don't think anybody has really made anything new for a long time, except for a few jazz players. Even then, guys like Pat Metheny has great ideas, and but now, it's like as if the whole world is eating pizza, and it's just like it's just a plain pie, and what they'll do is basically like okay, I made a pizza and it's not round, it's square, but it's still the same thing. It's just cheese and tomato sauce and bread. Yeah, but the bread's different, and now it's whole wheat. But it's still a pizza. Can you put some more meat on it or something like that? What meat? What's meat? Or what's a different type of cheese? Everybody seems to be just product the same exact product, and I'm looking to move on from pizza to like pasta, or a vegetarian, give me a steak. And a long time ago, when Jimi Hendrix, when Janis Joplin, whatever group that was out there, you were being served, whatever what high protein meal that you like, whether it's for a vegetarian something else, or for for meat eaters it was that steak. And I haven't heard us experience a steak of music in a long time.
Whose fault is that? Public? Business?
You know what? It's everybody's fault to a point. Musicians want to make money. They feed on the ignorance of the people. The people, you can even blame the educational programs. As much as, I myself, as an educator, try to open kids' heads up to different types of music, you can only go so far.
Teaching adolescents, what's that like?
It is a conundrum because of the fact, or catch-22, whatever you want to use. On one hand, it can be extremely rewarding because of the fact that you will flip on that switch of that one child that will be like, wow, what is this? But on the other hand, you have the other 10,000 that goes through your doors, who are just part of the mainstream ignorance. I'm a music educator. I teach in a middle school, mostly African American, a nice upper middle class town, and it's one of the most challenging things I ever did in my life, in the sense of trying to teach a broad range of music where a lot of the students in some way, the community has pigeonholed themselves into listening to one type of music and hasn't really broadened their perspective of other types and other cultures of music. If it doesn't have a hip-hop beat to it, or it doesn't have a rap in it or something, or if it isn't the American Idol melismatic, vocalizing over a simple tune, it's not good enough.
Why are young people today already so hard in their opinions or seemingly so close to other ideas? And do you think it's worse now than it was when you were that age?
Oh, it's worse now. At least we were lucky enough to have, a broad range of different types of music. You did have your R&B, you had the Beatles, you had the British side of it, you had folk music, playing acoustic, 3 to 4 part harmony like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You had Elvis Presley, putting out, that, pop stuff, but that leg shaking, white boy rock and roll, and then you had like Led Zeppelin, British music once again, but playing the blues, hardcore blues that black folks didn't even know it was their own music, but just being done by a British band. I mean, we had all these different things to listen to. We had, Southern rock, we had the Allman Brothers. You had Jeff Beck, once again, another British band, but then again, playing something completely different. There was just this whole world of different music. You had Yes doing, classical music. And the first time I heard the Firebird Suite was because of Yes. And then when they introduced that to me, I said, well, I gotta find out what this is. So you have all these things that you were being introduced to. With my kids today in school, here they are listening to O Fortuna, like I said before, the Carmina Burana, and they had no idea, what they were listening to. But they heard it in a Puff Daddy song, a P. Diddy arrangement, from the Godzilla movie or something like that, You Can Hate Me Now or something, I forget the name of the song. But as I heard it, I said, he just robbed the song. I remember he took a Led Zeppelin song called Kashmir and made that into a hip hop tune. And my kids were extremely upset when they found out that it was a British rock and roll band that originally wrote the music. Technology in my musical life has been one of the greatest gains, and to a point, one of the greatest losses, I guess, because of the fact that I have turned into a tech head. I must have bought about, at least 8 computers within the past 8 years, and upgraded the same piece of software at least 20 times. And I find myself just completely lost in it and loving it. I'm playing guitar, I'm singing, I'm recording myself. But it's the sort of thing where you can get hung up in it and, always trying to do better, or maybe playing around with the technology too much. You really have to, know what you're doing and study it. So it's a never-ending process, which to me is fine, but there's not enough time in the day to do that. And sometimes you just want to just lay it down and do it. Next thing you know, you're hung up in the technology. But it has, made my life a whole lot easier. And as far as I can record myself, I can lay down tracks, I can jam with myself, I can do all these things. The things that would take me days to do when I was using analog equipment, now, with the advent of the computer and the laptop, the portability, I can do many things, and it's wonderful. But sometimes I take all that stuff and throw out the window, and I just get back to just my acoustic guitar and just singing. Or instead of having all these different pedals and things, sometimes just me straight into an amplifier and just overdrive the channel and just go.
Whenever you're ready.
Look here, man, I'm on a brand new page. I got a smoking little baby. takes 2 jobs just to pull on through, to keep her in the way that she's accustomed to. Hey, yeah, half my age, I can't drop her, better lock her in a big steel cage. Late at night when I'm sitting home alone, hear her whisper that I love you to somebody on the telephone. She's half my age, I can't drop her, I better lock her in a big steel cage. Someone start believing in you. Let him hold out his hand. Let him touch you and watch what happens. I want someone who can look in your eyes and see deep in your heart. Let him find you and watch what happens. Cold, no, I won't believe your heart is cold. Maybe it's just afraid to be broken again. Let someone with a deep love to give that deep love to you, and with magic we'll see. Let someone give his heart, someone who is like me. Let someone give his heart, someone who cares.